We will discuss a very important concept in programming, which is called scopes. When we define a function, we create a new scope inside it. So over here is a new scope. What does it mean? It means that you have a separate so-called sandbox inside a function. In that sandbox, you have a new set of variables that is unreachable from the outside, with which you can play, you can interact, but they are not safe. So let's experiment a bit. Let's add a print-in message saying that we are in the function. And let's print out the a variable. And let's define another variable a outside the function. And let's say a equals 5 and print outside the function and then this variable a again. So which a is going to be printed? Will it be number 5? Will it be number 9? Let's see. Execute the script. So in the function we have the value 3 from which we started, then we multiplied 3 by 3 and then got 9. And outside the function we've got number 5. So this variable a is defined this variable a is defined in so-called global scope, and the second a is defined in local function scope. So when we call the function with this number 3, this number 3 is saved in variable a, and then when the function is processed and when it finishes its job, the internal a is going to be destroyed. And we see that this is this number 5 is coming from the global scope. It still have the value a equals 5 even after the function has been executed. At this moment, you may actually be asking yourself, what if I actually would like to change this a in a global scope after the function is done? Well, for that we need to use a special word. Return is a keyword, and we add it inside the function. So what do we say? Return. Well, we are not interested here in returning a variable, but we are interested in returning the result of the calculation, so we say return square. So we're saving the script. Let's run it. Actually, nothing has changed so far. One important point I forgot I wanted to make is let's put a over here and let's put a over there. So what it means is we have a over here that is equal 5, and then we put this 5, this variable a actually, inside this function. We call the function, we calculate, we do some calculations with a, it doesn't matter which calculations are they, and then we return the results of these calculations, and then we are saving the result of these calculations again to the variable a, and we printing out the value a again. Now let's see what it shows. For some reason it didn't work for me. So it said that in the function the variable a was equal to 5, and then square was equal to 25, and outside the function number a is now equal to 25. So basically we were able to save the result of this calculation in our global variable a and then print out this result. You can try to comment this return string, return line, and see what happens. So what you see over here, it says outside the function none. None is a special type of variable in Python, which means that basically it's no value. So what happens here is we're doing some calculations inside this calculate square function, but it doesn't return any value. And in this case, Python considers it as a none. And then this none is written to variable a. That's why we've got none result over here. And now I'm going to talk a bit more about scopes. So global scopes is basically is everywhere. When you type without functions or without classes, classes unfortunately are not going to be covered in our course. But if you use loops and if you use if-else constructions, operations, outside functions, it's still going to be in a global scope. And if it's going to be inside functions, this is going to be a function scope. The example of it may be this piece of code, a equals 2 if a more than 4 or less than 4, let's say, then b equals 25, and then we ask to print b, and then we ask to print b over here. We don't need this piece of code anymore, so we just getting rid of this one. So Python allows you to create this variable b inside if, and then we can print the result for this b. It should be 25, and even outside of this if construction, this b is still gonna be 25. You can check it out yourself. So you see that we have 25, 25 for both of the cases. And if you're coming from other programming languages, it may be quite a surprise for you that B is still saved outside of if construction. But for Python, it's all super logical because it's kind of yeah, in how to say it. Yeah, it's in line with Python core values, let's say. So if you use loops, the same is happening. Basically for I in range 15, print I. So we create this variable I. It's being created inside the loop. And then let's see what I value is going to be at the end of the loop. So we see that at the end of the loop, I variable is not destroyed. It still has a value of 14. Nevertheless, if you need to save some results of calculations inside the loop, I'd recommend to define some variable from the beginning, like we actually did before. So let's say that you need to calculate a sum for, I don't know, some numbers. So sum equals 0. I recommend that you define a separate variable before you come in inside the loop, and then you see sum equals sum plus I. And we are interested obviously in some results after the loop. Of course, it might also work without this definition from the beginning, without this line. But I think it's better if you write it down because it will prevent probably some errors that might arise in your code. And it's also for better readability, especially if other people from other programming languages are gonna reuse your code. So now let's go back to functions again and talk a bit more about this cute return word. So let's create a new tutorial for .2.py. Oh, oh, we'll rename it later. Dev. You can skip this part. I will just retype everything. Print in the function this variable a, and we calculate in a square, and then print in the square, and then returning square. So let's put something after this return value, this return line, sorry. Print this text is after return. And as you remember, we use this, a equals calculate square a. So if you try to run this code, you will see that this print is not going to be executed. This line is going to be completely skipped. Let's try to see it ourselves. So Python, well, let's first rename the file, tutorial for the .py, and I will rename it the tutorial to the .py. Yes. So let's try to run it now. And you see, indeed, that line after return is skipped. Basically, whenever Python see this return keyword, it stops execution of any lines after this line, and it goes back to the main execution, let's say, main point of execution. So you can even put these returns inside if constructions. So let's say if you have negative value, you would like these functions to stop and return nothing or return 0. So if a less than 0, you can say return 0. Otherwise, you return a square. And you see that again, we need to use tabs or for prints, 4 spaces, sorry. And again, this line is not going to be executed ever because you have 2 returns over here. And when a is below this value, below 0, it will immediately stop a function execution and go back to the main code over here, to the main execution line. And if a is positive, then it will continue until that moment and won't execute this line ever. Again, please run this code and see it yourself. Python tutorial for the, yes. Oh, sorry. I wanted to put a negative value inside so you're able to see this part is executed as well. So let's say it's -1. What's happening? So Python tutorial 4.2. So you see nothing is printed out because we just return in the 0 value, but we can actually show the result of our calculate square functions over here. Yes, so you see that the result is 0 and that's what we expected to see. This is it for today. Good luck with your exercise, and for curious students I recommend to find more information. You can use Lutz's book, which we recommend in our on Canvas page. You can find the exact name of the book. And you may also try to look in the internet on the next topics. First is how to return many values from the function. Second is how to make a default value for an argument inside a function. The third one would be what is main function, and why we need it. And the last one would be how to define a function with a not fixed list of arguments. So for example, if you would like to provide sometimes 2 values, sometimes 3 values. If you're curious, you can find information on these 4 topics in Lutz's book or in the internet. That is it.